the New York Jets have just met with a surprising first-round prospect just after he absolutely dominated the combine, and we got to break this down. So what's up, guys? I'm Matt Long. Welcome to Jets Digest. Before we hop into the video for today, only 25.7% of viewers are subscribed to the channel. So if you are not subscribed, please take a second, hit the subscribe button. It really helps me out a ton. But getting into what we got for today, less than a month away from the NFL draft, the New York Jets continue to meet with prospects, this time with a highly athletic defensive lineman from Texas A&M. According to the USA Today's Art Stapleton, the Jets defensive line coaches spent considerable time with Texas A&M defensive lineman Shemar Stewart ahead of the Aggies Pro Day. Stewart, 21 years old, was a five-star recruit coming out of high school. He committed to Texas A&M, where he spent all three of his collegiate seasons, compiling 65 total tackles, including 12 for a loss. Only 4.5 sacks in those 37 games, but despite only having 4.5 sacks, Stewart was able to consistently get into the backfield, logging 79 total pressures across his college career. He also thrived at stopping the run, recording an 88.2 run defense grade in 2024, courtesy of Pro Football Focus. All of this information coming from the Jets X Factor online. So, Shemar Stewart is a defensive lineman coming in at 6'5", 265 pounds, scoring a 10 out of 10 relative athletic score at the NFL Combine. So an extremely athletic player that the New York Jets are spending one of their 30 visits on. They get 30 prospects that they can take a real close look at and get them in for a visit with the team. And one of them, they clearly thought this defensive end was a good enough prospect that they were going to take a look. It confuses me a little bit because, we just drafted Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald in the first round, but Darren Mougey didn't make that first round pick. So as good as those players are, them being on the roster will not preclude them from taking Shemar Stewart. Now, there are two schools of thought when it comes to Shemar Stewart. The first one being he's super athletic. And then the other one talking about how he only has gotten 1.5 sacks per season. If you ask PFF, I don't know if they round up or they credit him with 2 sacks per season, but PFF has him as getting 2 sacks per season. So believe whatever you want to believe, but every other statistical outlet, namely Pro Football Reference, has him at 1.5 sacks per season. But the pro case for this player is, as you can see here, 2022, 2023, 2024, steadily improved year after year. So who's to say that this player wouldn't be able to continue to improve should he be drafted in the first round to the New York Jets and into the NFL? Also, if he was drafted highly in the first round, you'd get this ridiculously athletic player, a player who compares favorably athletically to Myles Garrett in the NFL and on your football team. Obviously, that's something schools or teams are excited about, but he does not compare favorably to Myles Garrett when you look at that production. Obviously, the downside of this player is looking at that production not anywhere with what you're looking for. But what's most important, I always say, we need to be able to separate what a good NFL prospect is from what a good college player is. So maybe Shemar Stewart isn't a good college player, but maybe it's just... And one important comment I need to make is sacks aren't the be-all, end-all when it comes to a first-round D end, but 1.5 is lower than what you're looking for, obviously. So looking at what is important of how well he's going to play at the next level is going to be what the film says. And I watched some of his film, was not very impressed by it, but after looking at his Pro Football Focus grades by game, it looks like the games that I watched, namely LSU, because I wanted to watch him against Will Campbell, against a really good left tackle. The games I watched were some of his lowest graded games on the entire season. So maybe the 3 games that I watched, I didn't get the best feel for what the prospect is. But when you look at film, I believe you can't find a good game and then just watch that, or find a bad game and watch that, because then you're not going to get the right feel. So I don't pick the film based off how well he played. I didn't know how well he was going to play before I pulled up the film, and he happened to not play so well in those games. But not impressed with what I saw. But we also have some of the positives and negatives of this player coming from Bleacher Report to get a better idea of who this player is and why the New York Jets may be interested in selecting him on day one. Some people are talking about him as a potential pick at 7 overall. That doesn't make any sense at all to me. If they would trade down and then select him, I still think there are better picks for the Jets, but what do I know? I'm not an NFL GM. Maybe Darren Mougey is better at this than I am, and that would make a ton of sense. That's why he gets paid a lot of money to do this. But let's look at his positives. Great size, length, and frame for an NFL defensive end, combined with impressive movement skills for his size. So we talked about his 10 out of 10 relative athletic score. That relative athletic score is how athletic you are relative to how tall and heavy you are. So obviously a very good athlete, but I feel like we've mentioned that before. Good strength at the point of attack with long arms to get extension and set the edge against offensive tackles. We talk a lot about offensive tackles on this channel, and I always talk about how that very important measurement is how long their arms are, because there's that race to get into the guy's chest, and as you're a defensive end, you want to get into the offensive lineman's chest, and when you have long arms, it's easier for you to do that. And if you're matched up with an offensive lineman who has shorter arms, it's going to be easier for you to get your hands on him and control which way he goes. Although, when I saw the film Will Campbell versus Shemar Stewart, Will Campbell won I believe every rep. I believe every single rep. I actually walked away from the game thinking maybe Will Campbell's the pick at 7. Was not impressed with what I saw against what's going to be a top 15 pick in the NFL in Will Campbell. So he sinks his hips well and has lower body strength to avoid getting washed inside by down blocks. As a pass rusher, he can put offensive tackles on skates when turning speed to power, has the change of direction skills to test offensive linemen's ability and redirect them when using stick moves. So what we're getting from these pros is he's a highly athletic player and can use these athletic traits to manipulate offensive linemen in different ways. And if you don't have an athletic offensive lineman, this guy's going to be able to get around you. So these traits are important at the next level, because whether you got 1.5 sacks in college or 45 sacks in college per year, it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is what can you do? These guys are being drafted to be good NFL prospects, not good college football players. So this is why Shemar Stewart is getting propped up even with the low production, is because teams really like the ideas of what he can do. But talking about what they don't expect him to do, the negatives here, as according to Bleacher Report, minimal pass rush production through his college career, 4.5 sacks in 3 years. Talked about that. Use of hands as a pass rusher is poor. He's often late and inaccurate with his hands/chops when working finesse moves, which allows offensive linemen to make the first significant contact. So I talk about it's a race to get your hands on the inside of the other player, whether you're the tackle or the defensive lineman. So if the offensive lineman is going to make first contact with you, instead of you making first contact with him, that offensive lineman is going to be able to control you as a defensive end, and you are not going to be able to put pressure on the quarterback, and you're not going to be able to do your job. It's going to be a 1 rep for the offensive lineman. Has some stiffness in his lower half, negatively impacting his ability to bend and corner at the top of the rush. So we talk about how Will McDonald got drafted. Pretty much one of the main things was his ability to bend, which was to get around the corner of an offensive tackle and dip his inside shoulder to get under the tackle's hands and get around him to get a sack. So that is what Bleacher Report is saying Shemar Stewart struggles with, which, makes sense that he's not a great pass rusher when you look at how many sacks he had. And occasionally he will get caught leaving his gap early as a run defender. So that's just one run defense hiccup that this player has. Although, like we mentioned multiple times, he had an 88.2 run defense grade, which is a very high grade. So not super worried about what he can and can't do run defense wise. He's been a great player in run defense throughout his career, and we have no reason to believe that's not going to continue in the NFL. Now, you could see here he's got that pass rush grade is lower than his run defense grade. So a lot of the times, if the New York Jets were going to take a D end in the first round, the expectation would be it's not going to be a run stuffing defensive end. It's going to be a pass rusher. So that's just one of the reasons why this player, it's a little bit head scratching to me why he's getting so much hype as a top 10 prospect. I understand the traits are not found anywhere in the NFL draft other than day one. Although I think we are getting a little bit too excited about this player's combine, and we're forgetting what the film told us throughout the 2024 season in college football. So if I'm the New York Jets, Darren, Mougey, Aaron Glenn. This is not a player that I would like to see them take a risk on in the first round, because this guy with the production, we don't know for a fact that he is going to be able to translate these traits to production in the NFL when everyone that he's going to be playing against is going to be better than who he played against in college. So it would be very highly risky to select this player. And especially when we have Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald, we certainly don't have a very strong need at defensive end. So that's another reason why I'm not excited to take this player should he generate more buzz. I mean, I really think we see every year in the pre-draft process, there are some guys that are propped up by their athletic abilities and by measurements, and people kind of forget what happened on the field. While at the same time, some guys that maybe are injured or are not athletic slide down boards a little bit, but then as rookies, we look at that new rookie and we go, how did this guy fall down in the draft? And I really think we just got to remember, when you're scouting players, when you're looking at the NFL draft, you have to remember that the film is the most important thing. And for me, not highly impressed with Shemar Stewart's film. I really hope, unlike some people were commenting on the Armand Membo video that I made, that it was a smokescreen for the New York Jets faking interest in Membo to try to get someone else to select him. I think that is completely incorrect when it comes to Armand Membo. However, I do think if more smoke is generated around Shemar Stewart being drafted by the New York Jets 7th overall, I would say that it is maybe not likely, but entirely possible that it would be a smokescreen, that the New York Jets are trying to bait someone into trading up with them to go ahead and select Shemar Stewart instead of letting the New York Jets take him, because the production is too scary to draft a guy top 10. I mean, if you're going to go ahead and get an edge rusher, I really think Jalen Walker could do. It's also going to be stupidly athletic, and he can also play outside linebacker. He's going to be a little bit more versatile than this player is going to be. Even though I do want to mention, even though he's only 267, he does have a little bit of scheme versatility should he be drafted by the Jets. We know Stephen Wilkes will be employing defenses with more defensive backs, more nickel, dime, quarters, more of that stuff. So he could be moved inside in those formations in third and very long. So that's maybe one reason why they could go get him, but I think his teammate on that Texas A&M defensive line, Nick Scorton, would be a better selection for the Jets in the first round when it comes to defensive ends. So overall, not a prospect I'm extremely excited to take. Really hoping that this is a fabrication to try to get the New York Jets to get more excitement around their pick, to give them a better opportunity to trade down the draft, acquire more draft capital for next year, because I do believe with NIL and people opting out of this draft cycle, I think next year's draft is going to be absolutely loaded, and I want as many draft picks as we can possibly have for 2026. But that's what I got for today. So if you guys enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new. As always, go Jets.